Welcome, everyone. We are live with another episode of Level Up Law, where every Tuesday at noon, South Carolina Legal Services is leveling up your legal knowledge about an area of law that we practice in. I'm Susan Ingalls, the Consumer Law Unit Head and Senior Staff Attorney here at South Carolina Legal Services, and also have with us our producer, Kenneth Elliott, as always today. And appreciate you being here. We'll be talking about scams. Once Upon a Scam is the title of the presentation. And they'll be talking about scams in general, but because we're observing Older Americans Month, May is Older Americans Month, we'll be also focusing on scams that target senior citizens or older adults. And so we'll be talking about that here momentarily. But before we get started, I do want to remind everyone that this is not legal advice. It's just general information for the public. And if you do have an issue, whether it be about something like this or some other legal problem, you can always contact us here at Legal Services. We'll be giving you that information shortly. I do want to alert you to the QR code on your screen where you can scan and sign up for various things here at South Carolina Legal Services, whether it's our newsletter or an interest in the educational resources that we have, or even making a donation to our nonprofit law firm if you'd like to. That's a great way to do that. And then also, Kenneth will always record this episode, as always, and load it up to our YouTube channel, where we have well over 160 videos on the Level Up Law playlist. But we also have a lot of other resources there for you, not just from Level Up Law. So definitely check it out, FC Legal Services. And here is what we call our Connect card. And that gives you all of our social media, so you can follow us, like, subscribe, and all those good things, but especially on our YouTube channel, because that's where we post a lot of really great video resources. And of course, you can listen to those just as audio as well. And we'll be giving you that information again at the conclusion of today's presentation. So I'm going to be talking about scams, financial scams, and how to, what they are. We're going to define them. We're going to talk about how to spot them, and then some ways that you can avoid them. So let's just get started with some of the common scams, okay? Pyramid schemes has been around for a long time, sometimes called a Ponzi scheme. And the people who get involved in a pyramid scheme, are either investing or something like that. But the problem with it is that you have to have more and more investors to keep that pyramid, because it's the investors below you that are putting in money that comes to you, that comes to the people above you in the pyramid. And so it's, going to be a problem once people start wanting to get their money out and then the money isn't there. I also mentioned here the multi-level marketing schemes. They're a little bit similar to the pyramids, but basically that usually requires you to buy a whole bunch of inventory at the beginning, and then you have to recruit other distributors besides yourself, who then go out and get their own customers, and you get part of that. So it just has to include more and more people, and those people have to stay in the program that's going on. So it's important to understand that that is one of the common ones that can really get you in trouble. And I've got some tip here for you and some information about how to steer clear of these type of schemes. And the FCC has some really good information for you on that, because a pyramid scheme is an investment scheme. And I might also say that if you remember Bernie Madoff, That was an investment issue we'll talk about again in a minute. Now, affinity fraud. Now, this is not a type of fraud in that what it does is targets what you call affinity groups. So you might have a group of people who live in a certain area, who maybe practice a certain religion. Maybe they are a group of people that speak a language other than English, and that sort of binds them together. Or it could be ethnicity, culture, any number of things. But what the scammer, fraudster, will do is to target you because you're within one of those kind of groups. And often they're in that same group with you, or they bring somebody along who is in that group, and that makes you trust the person who is committing the fraud, whether they're in the group or they have somebody with them that's in the group. One of the things that I've seen with clients is that someone is coming door to door with some sort of scheme, and they bring along someone from a local church where a lot of the people in the neighborhood go to that neighborhood church. And so they feel trusting of this person that's with the fraudster who's from their church. And maybe the person from the church is getting some kind of a, finder's fee or commission or something like that. But so don't let your guard down just because there's somebody that you think you should trust because they're kind of like you. Still verify, as you do with everything, who they are, what kind of investment or scheme they're trying to sell to you. And so really actually Bernie Madoff is sort of the example of this, as well as the investment scheme. And there's, you can look him up on Wikipedia. The Madoff investment scandal was a big news item back when that happened. Okay, sales scams is another common scam that we see, and that can be anything from, a fake designer pocketbook to some sort of a pet or even health products. We have a lot of health product sales out there that you need to be careful of. So you really should only do business with merchants that you know and trust. We have all, been the target of scams, myself included, and you just have to be really careful and do your due diligence to investigate who you're dealing with. There is, we mentioned here, one way is to do the transaction through, something like PayPal, Amazon, things like that, that you feel like are, safe and can be trusted. And there are some new laws on them, which we actually have done an episode of Level Up Law about, the Informed Consumers Act, that requires them to provide a little more information to the people that are purchasing things on their site. So you can check that out as well. And also that extra tip of pay by credit card, because there are a lot of safeguards there that you don't have if you're using just a debit card out of your checking account. Tech support scams, as you might guess, this is a big one because everybody's using computers, iPads, cell phones. In fact, a lot of people are using cell phones without even worrying about using a computer or an iPad. You can do everything on your cell phone that you can do on those others. But what we typically see, and this is especially true as we are, talking about our older adults, if you're at a computer desktop and suddenly a big warning comes up on your computer and it's saying, oh, your computer is at risk. Click here so that we can help you fix it. And it usually appears to be someone like Microsoft or Google or some huge, internet company that you recognize. And so you think, oh gosh, Microsoft wants to help me. You click on it, and then they've got you. And what they're doing is you're giving them remote access to your computer. and then they've got everything that's in your computer, all your personal information, and then at some point that's gold right there. But then also sometimes they'll say, well, okay, we're getting ready to get this all fixed. There is a fee that has to be paid to Microsoft to do this for you, and that's whatever the amount. Let's say it's $200, and they say do you want to go ahead and pay that? You don't have to, and they convince you that it's all up to you, but they've already got all your information. And so this is something that we see with older adults, but also with everyone. But I think it's sometimes the much older adults are more susceptible to that fear that gets instilled in you by that kind of a message. So we really have to be careful with those. There's a great information with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, called On Guard Online. So I highly recommend that for you if you want to get more information about what to look for. False health claims. Now, there are some perfectly fine products out there, but there are also a lot of fraudsters who are, promising weight loss, great skin care that will make you look young forever. And sometimes they're not only ineffective and don't work, but they can also cause harm to you in some way. We always say you should consult your physician if you have any specific medical issues, especially as you age. You have to be really careful and go by the advice of your physician. And also, I think here it's important to mention free trial offers, which is great because you can just try it and then you don't have to keep buying it. But most, if not all, free trial offers these days require you to sign up with a credit card so that if you decide that you want to continue getting this item, you will get it automatically. And sometimes people forget to cancel it, and sometimes you can have a lot of trouble canceling it and even have to go so far as canceling whatever credit card or debit card that you put it on and getting a whole new card because the system that you went for online doesn't allow that cancellation. The FDA has this health fraud scams are everywhere, which is tips for these types of scams. So I definitely recommend that you go there if you want to have more information. It's just good to know that this stuff is out there and that we have a lot of great, government and nonprofit agencies that are providing a lot of good information, more detailed information about that. Romance scams. I knew there was a lot of this, but I had no idea how high up on the food chain it was when it comes to scams of older adults. It is the biggest. Okay. The most scams of seniors, especially where their money is concerned and their money is stolen from them, is these romance scams. And the thing that is so important is to remember that you really, if you're in love with somebody, you need to meet them in person in a safe situation. Usually romance scams involve someone saying that they're in another state or they're overseas or something like that, and that's why they can't, connect with you in person. But what we especially need to think about nowadays with artificial intelligence or AI is that they've always been able to put up a fake picture online, but now with AI, and these people have plenty of money, so they can do all kind of crazy stuff with the AI, but they can make a version of themselves and a voice for themselves that looks like a real person, and there's no telling who's really behind that camera. And so it's really important to know that. We'll also talk about that with grandparent scams as well in just a minute. But also another thing to keep in mind is that romance scammers are very patient, because they've got a lot of feelers out there to a lot of people that they're telling them they're in love with. And they will spend lots of time grooming a person, particularly, as I said, our older adults, grooming them to think that this is a real relationship. So it starts with just, oh, I, wanted to meet you online, love talking to you. And so they just build up that charming rapport with the person. And then eventually they ask for something. Sometimes it's money at the beginning. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just advice. Like maybe I can't seem to get my son to connect with me. Do you have any suggestions? So it's just personal, emotional advice. Sometimes they really have you start to feel sorry for them a little bit, and that you can help them as a romantic partner. But eventually they will ask for money. And usually the money ask has to do with them getting back to the States or getting to your state so that the two of you can get together and have your wonderful life together. I've even had a client who was the victim, the gentleman who was the victim of a romance scam that was supposedly a female living in Dubai, way, in the, Middle East, and that she was an FBI agent. And they had this ongoing thing. Not only did she take every bit of money that he had, but he even took out loans to send her money. And the final draw was when he told me that she had said that she needed money for a plane ticket to get back home. And I said, if she's in the FBI, I'm pretty sure they will transport her home. She doesn't need cash for that. And, I think he realized that there was some truth to that. But unfortunately, he already was convinced that that was a real relationship and a real person, and he lost everything as a result. And so I think it's important for people to realize that. But the more important thing, in addition to that, is to understand that the person who is being scammed by the romancer is very rarely going to admit that it is not a true romantic relationship. Last year we had a segment of Level Up Law done by two FBI agents. Check it out on our playlist. They talked about romance scams and how that people who are the victim of a romance scam don't even believe the FBI agents when they say this is a scam. This is not a real person. They've done this to other people. And they said it was just terrible to think that even if the FBI tells you that you're being scammed by a criminal, once those romantic scammers have got you, it's really hard to get their claws out of you. And I thought that was very revealing by the FBI. So I think the main thing when it comes to romance scams is if you have a family member, a friend, a loved one, and you think that they are being connected with somebody that they don't really know, or they're talking about having a girlfriend or a boyfriend, just be really careful and help with the checking it out and investigating the person. But two warnings. One is you don't want to end up being the bad guy. So be very careful about how you do it. That's warning number one. And I think warning number two really has to do with how you talk about what's going on. Because people, especially older folks, don't like to feel like they have been duped. Words like that are not the kind of words you want to use, because that makes them feel like they are the person who got duped, and that somehow that means that they're not smart or their brain isn't working right or something like that. You really need to flip that script and use the scammer against themselves and say, no, you weren't duped. This person was the one. It wasn't you. They misled you. They lied to you. They are a criminal. So just be careful about how you uh, phrase that. And maybe if you're early enough in the process, you could somehow um, disconnect your loved one from the alleged romantic partner. And again, online dating scams, the FTC has a good web page on that for more information. I think I probably covered that more than anyone so far. Now, blackmail schemes, I thought it was important to mention because there's so many video cameras everywhere. Everybody's got a cell phone taking videos and pictures. There's been several things recently in the news where there were videos of crimes being allegedly committed and things like that. So we should all realize that that's out there, and that probably anything we do outside of our home, our office, and sometimes even there because of the way there's listening going on with cell phones and stuff. You have to be careful about all that. But lots of times someone will have a video of you or a picture of you, and keep in mind that they can use AI to switch that up and make it look like you when it really wasn't you. And so you don't want to succumb to a fraudster or blackmailer who said, "Oh, I've got this, compromising video of you, and I won't put it out there if you give me a certain amount of money, then I'll turn it over to you." Well, first of all, they're going to still have a copy of it, number one. But also, they have the ability to send it out anyway, and also there may be other video and pictures of the very same thing because everybody's got a phone. Not everybody, but I would say the vast majority of people have a phone or access to one. And if you think you can pay for someone's silence and nothing will ever come out, um, you're fooling yourself. So just don't do that one. Now, energies and utility scams, that's something that we don't hear people talk a lot about when they're talking about scams. And because there are a lot of scams that affect older adults who are maybe retired, they're in their homes, so they're kind of susceptible to those door-to-door people that are coming by. The energy utility scams are typically a door-to-door situation. And so what happens is they come and say they're from whatever utility company. Sometimes they call you on the phone and say your power's about to be turned off, and maybe you paid your bill. But anyway, they'll say they're from the utility company, and they mainly are trying to get your personal information or to get you to buy whatever it is they're supposedly selling. Some important things are, number one, check out who they are. Don't let them in your house. Have them hold up an ID, which they probably would have a fake ID. But look at whatever vehicle they're driving. They may be driving a vehicle that doesn't have the name of the utility company on it, and that may be, okay. But typically, utility companies do have vehicles that their people go out in. But you can say, close the door. So I'm going to have to check that out with the company. Close the door. And you can call your utility company on the telephone and see if this is a legit thing. I've had somebody tell me a story about that very recently. They had heard our presentation about this and said that someone came to offer some free, I guess, accessories to the utilities or something like that, very simple things, but they came in an unmarked van And so they were definitely very wary and did not open the door. And I think they opened the door enough to hear through the screen door what the deal was. But they called the utility company, and the utility company said, "Oh yes, we have people out in your area doing that." And so it can be legit, but you really do have to be careful because this is a very typical um, scam. And here's just some ways to recognize that I've already talked about, but there's a little bit of a list here that you can look at. Um, and as it says at the bottom, they got two goals. Either they want your money or they want to steal your personal information. That's why you don't want to let them in your home. Because if you're like me, you might have a stack of bills laying around. Your pocketbook might be sitting there. The utility person might say, "Oh well, can you go back to the the box and watch for the switches to flip as I turn on these lights," or something like that. And what they're really doing is trying to get you out of the room so they can get your wallet or find, something that has your social security number or a credit card. So you really have to be careful about letting people in your house. Okay. Now, the home energy audit is sort of piggybacking onto the utility scams. This is where they want to come in. They say they're auditing your home energy so that they can reduce your bill. And Lord, everybody wants to do that, right? Electric bills and gas bills and all that can get really high. But ultimately, they want you to sign something. And you better be really careful about what you're signing, especially nowadays where they always want you to sign on an iPad. They don't want all that paperwork. And it's very tempting when you're signing on an iPad to not read what you're signing. And so I just don't ever sign anything on an iPad that I don't get to read or at least get a copy of right on the spot. So be careful of those. Okay. And this is just a nice little laundry list of how to protect yourself from those energy scams. Know who your service provider is. Never allow anyone to get anywhere close to your personal information, and don't give it to them. Even if it's a legit thing, you just want to be really careful. Get their ID because sometimes there's fake, and the ID may be fake as well. Whip out your cell phone and take a picture of it so you'll know who came by and you can call the company. Details are always important. If you are signing something new, you really want to take the time to evaluate what you're signing and see if it really is going to be better than what you have. I think a great example, this isn't necessarily an energy scam, but a great example is with, television. There are so many opportunities to switch your service, right? Whether it's internet, television, or whatever, and you're going to save money, right? But it only really lasts for 3 months, and then they go to the regular price. And so you've got to be really careful about what you're signing. There's a lot of fine print there, so don't be fooled. All right, and of course, don't feel pressured. This is, except for the romance scammers who take their time, getting into that relationship, these folks are usually pressuring you and making you feel like, oh well, if you don't do this now, the special deal runs out at 5 o'clock or something like that. And so just be careful about that. Solar contracts are a real problem, and that's one of the things that you find with them. Alarm systems, solar panels, and things like that. And stay informed. You can always check on what's happening in the area and report it, whether it's to the police or in South Carolina, we have the Department of Consumer Affairs, and they have a lot of good ongoing current information about the latest scams that are going on, either across the country, right here in South Carolina, or in your area, because those things quite often get reported to them. So you can go to consumer.sc.gov and get that great information. Federal Trade Commission also with some great resources on that. Okay, let's talk about, because it is older Americans, and we want to talk about the scams that do tend to specifically target our senior population. Caregiver schemes. Now, this is kind of, lots of times caregivers are older adults, and sometimes they're not. But I think it's important for you to know if that's part of how you're getting, your income, because there's so much need for it. We have a lot of people who are just doing that, not necessarily even through a company, but maybe as an individual. But if you're looking for that kind of job, here's some things that you need to watch out for. Okay. Don't take a job where you have been hired just over the phone. There's not been any interview process, nothing where you've learned about the company. You've really got to watch out for that. And then lots of times you will get a check before you've even started working, and that is a big scam, because what they do is they say, well, and we're going to go ahead and give you a, like a bonus check to start, and you can buy your supplies out of that from us or whatever, and then you can keep the rest of the money. Unfortunately, that's one of those fake check scams where they've sent you the check and you're supposed to deposit it and send them money. They get your money that was already in your bank account, and then when that check bounces, which it eventually will, then you're out the rest of that money because it's going to be taken from your bank account. It's very hard sometimes to get banks to realize that that's what's going on, or to give you your money back from something that you did voluntarily. You were scammed, you were hoodooed, maybe you were misled, but if you actually did it and consented to it, it's sometimes hard to get a financial institution to be able to do anything about it. 3 things here that you should do if you do get a job offer like that. Check the people out. Don't give them any of your personal information, certainly not over the phone, before you have talked to somebody in person. Just got to be careful about that personal information. It may be out there anyway, maybe nothing you can do about that, but do what you can to protect your information. And then, of course, don't send money to your potential boss. That's a big no-no. And then, all the details, you really want to get everything in writing about the job. I think we have gotten used to doing things not in writing, doing a lot over the phone and over email and things like that. And this is where the scammers can really get you, because people are used to not having those kinds of safeguards in place or utilizing those safeguards. Also, for the older Americans, Medicare and Social Security scams. The key here is that you just don't give your information to somebody that randomly calls you. They might call and say, oh, this is, federal government, we're calling about your Social Security, and we've got a problem with your account, and your payment is not going to go through this month until we can get this resolved. Well, people that are getting that, they got that fixed income, right? That's the only income they're going to get that month. And somebody's telling them on the telephone that it's not going to come if they don't talk to this person or do this certain thing or anything like that. You got to be careful about those random calls like that. You can always verify what's going on with Medicare and Social Security by calling them yourself. So if somebody calls you unexpectedly about this kind of a thing, don't give them any information. Say, well, thank you for calling. I'm going to go ahead and call and, speak to someone and find out what's going on before I give you any information. And it's hard for us to do that, right? Everybody tends to be like really nice on the telephone, and they don't want to hang up on people. And that's how so many of these scammers get you, because they're able to keep you on the telephone. So it's better just to hang up and call on your own, not a number that they gave you to call, but your own number, because you know, and it's right here on your screen, what those numbers are to call and find out the information. That is the safe and secure way to deal with an issue if you really do have one with your Medicare and Social Security. Okay, and Medicare also, most all of these government agencies will have their own fraud page now, so that you can go there and look and see, oh, is this something that they're doing now? They're calling people and saying this about Social Security, and you can kind of identify what's happened to you. Home equity loan scams. This is a concern for older adults because very often they have a paid for house. They spent years working and paying their mortgage and they have paid it off. And then they have all of that value in their home that we call equity. And there are a lot of, and this is as much just sales people as it is scammers, but a lot of them will try to get you to take out a loan on your home. Reverse mortgages, and we have some episodes on reverse mortgages you might want to look at, because those can be a real surprise when somebody passes away and you thought that they owned their home and didn't have a mortgage on it. But anyway, you've got to be careful about the home equity loans, because what you're doing and is you're taking an asset that you have that nobody can take from you unless you don't pay your taxes. But that's an asset that you have that nobody else has an interest in when your mortgage is paid off, and you need to try to keep it that way, unless you desperately need money. Some will, if you're not looking for money or needing money, then you should resist any kind of home equity loans, because you don't need the money. If they're calling you and sending you mailers that suggest this, and you say, oh, well, I could get some money for a vacation, I'll just get a home equity loan. You really want to avoid that, because there are some real problems when you are putting another mortgage on your house. All right. Grandparent scam. This is sort of in that area like the romance scams, but it's kind of a different animal. These happen a lot faster. And what happens is an older American, typically, either grandparent, gets a call from allegedly their grandchild or some other family member. And they say, oh, grandpa or mom, I've been arrested in some other state, some other country. I need you to send me bail money or help me, get out of this jam that I'm in. And grandparents are always very susceptible to this because, they have that special bond with the grandchildren. And what will happen is the scammer will say, please don't tell mom and dad. They'll be so upset and so disappointed in me. And so the grandparent is going, oh gosh, I don't want that to happen. And again, I have clients, I know people who have not been clients who this has happened to. And the big tip on this, don't pay the person who is calling, okay? Because they say, well, I've got your grandson here. He needs to talk to you. He's down here in the jail in, Florida or something. And then, they put someone on. And they say, oh, well, you can send us bail. Here's the, you can wire it to us down here at the police station in Florida, and, we'll let him out within 24 hours or something like that. You don't want to do that. You want to find out a whole lot more. You'd be better off to take that money and call an attorney down there and say, I'll pay you if you can get my grandson out of jail. Here's his name and the alleged police station. That would be a much better way to go about that than just paying something over the phone that you will never see again. And as I mentioned with the romance scams, these can also be heightened by the artificial intelligence, where they can get a recording of your family member's voice and then get that repeated through artificial intelligence and be able to actually sit there and have a conversation. They usually are able to determine like who the other family members are and talk about them and things like that. It's just unbelievable what these scammers could do. So as older Americans, we really have to be careful of these. Funeral and burial scams. Now we did do an episode that is very much more detailed than this is, but in case you haven't seen that one, you can go and watch it. But I want to mention it here in case you don't have time to watch a further episode that goes into more detail. But there's a lot of scams with funerals and burials, and a big reason for that is because of obituaries. Right, so the scammers are out there, they're watching the obituaries. They can determine like when funerals are and if nobody's going to be in the house, okay? It may just be straight robbery or burglary, not necessarily even a scam. But also, they will come to your home, often like right before the funeral is going to be happening, or maybe right before you're going to have a visitation, and they say, oh, you still owe a little bit on the funeral, so we're not going to be able to do it until you pay the balance of $500. And of course, you freak out because, you paid all this money for a funeral and a visitation and all that kind of thing. And so you're scared that that's going to happen, that the funeral is going to somehow be canceled and you're going to be humiliated and you're going to feel so bad about your loved one. But what happens is that's just somebody trying to get money out of you, and they may be very good. They probably do it all the time, and they know everything about one funeral home, and that's the one that they do. There's been a lot more of this lately. Also, fake burial plots. I've had clients that has happened to. It's again more sales than it is a scam, but still, you've got to really check out what you're doing with every time you spend money on something these days, even something that you might not suspect. Any of the claims, I mean, it's very easy to hang up the phone or close the door and go call the funeral home and say, do I still owe some money to y'all? Because I just got a call that said I owed another amount of money, and they're likely going to say, oh no, the insurance paid all of it. You're good. You've paid in full, and then you've confirmed that it was nothing more than a scam. Again, our friends at the Federal Trade Commission have a great resource called Debts and Deceased Relatives. So you can find a lot of good information there on these types of scams. Okay. Let's talk about spotting and avoiding scams before too much time goes by. Here's the 7 ways to avoid scams. Very simply, be vigilant. Maintain a healthy level of skepticism. That's probably the most important one. Always be aware that urgency is a red flag. Just be aware of that. Guard your money, guard your personal information and any data. Don't give any of that over the phone. Check everything out. Do your due diligence to investigate any company or person that you're going to be dealing with. And then if you're paying something that might end up being a fraudulent transaction, if you paid it with a credit card, that's a lot better because there is a limitation on your liability for any unauthorized charges. And the payment on that can be traced. These are just a couple of emails that I got that I like to share with people to show that you got to be really careful about emails and clicking on them and thinking that there's a legit situation. This was one I got saying that there's a case, a fraud department case, and that there's a lock on my credit card. It didn't even say what credit card it was. So you can usually look at the email address, but also the content of the big warning and realize that it's not really real. You don't even have a credit card at that point. Here's another one, action required. Security was under risk and failure to authenticate my email is going to result in a terrible, thing happening. So those are just some uh, examples that come even to me and may come to you. I'm always adding to that list. Okay, here's like 8 really quick things that I love. I love this about the FTC. They have these great little snippets, but they also have a lot of detailed information. A Bitcoin ATM, that's a scam. We're going to go through these real quick. Anyone who asks you for your account verification code is a scammer. Don't ever share it. We have that multi-factor authentication a lot now when we're dealing through our phone or, online, and they'll send you that verification code. And they always say, do not share this with anybody else. They're exactly right. If you share that or somebody hacks into your phone and gets it, it could be a problem. Never agree to keep a secret. And I find this lots of times with older Americans that they can be convinced to keep something a secret. Lots of times it's because they might be embarrassed if they, tell that someone misled them and they've had a loss of their income or asset or something of that nature. But also, this is true with romance scams in particular, is they're wanting to isolate you from the people that you know and that you trust. Never move or transfer your money to protect it. That's what a scammer will do. Say, oh, well, you can protect your money. We have a secure account here at Microsoft or Google or wherever that you can move that money to if you want to go ahead and do that now. Or here's a, wiring information where you can wire it from your bank. So just don't ever suddenly decide because somebody told you this that you should move your money to protect. Lots of times they will say, don't tell the bank or go to the bank and get this money wired, but don't tell them what it's for. They're in on it. They're part of the problem. They'll always tell you not to trust anybody but them. Phishing scams we all hear about a lot, but it always bears repeating. Don't open links. Don't open attachments in email, especially in text messages nowadays with your phone, or just from any unknown source. Just don't click. Don't click on anything. And then suspicious activity, get a lot of those, whether it be phone or text or anything like that. And they say, oh, we've got suspicious activity on your account. Click here to find out more about it. Okay, that's how they actually get your information. So just definitely hang up on things like that or just delete them before you even click on anything. And then this is something I talked about in the beginning with those tech support calls. When a pop-up warning comes on your computer, always a scam. Don't ever call a random mystery tech support. All right, that's it. We made it through. Here's how you can apply for South Carolina legal services. Hope that you will do that if you have the need. But if you don't have a specific need yourself, you can always refer people to us. You can go to our YouTube page and subscribe so you'll always, and sign up for the notifications, of course, so you'll always know when we have uploaded any kind of new video, whether it's from Level Up Law or any of the other videos that we do. So definitely do that. Here's the QR code again, so that you could scan that if you didn't get a chance to before. And let us know if you want more of this, more of the same. And then I just want to give you one more quick look at our Connect card so that you can join us on social media. You can call and apply for our services. You can also apply for those online, which is also a great way to do it. And before you go, I want to thank you for joining me on Level Up Law today. We always appreciate it, whether you are here with us live or on the replay. We thank you for joining us, and be sure to tune in next week when, again, in our observance of Older Americans Month, we'll have a speaker who will be from the Upstate Respite Coalition. And those of you who either have a caregiver or know a caregiver or serve as a caregiver will know that respite is very important for you to get that time away. And they do some great things here, so we'll be learning more about that. They're a great partner of ours. All right, that's it. Thanks again for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you next time on Level Up Law. That concludes today's webinar. Thanks for joining us.